Are you feeling stuck in your songwriting today? If you are, I want to open your mind to creating some songs in a new way. Memories are powerful things. It's how we remember the experiences that we've had in our life so that we can keep growing as people. But maybe there's some memories that you haven't thought about in a while, or you didn't even think about the fact that they could be used for songwriting. And this might just be the secret sauce that helps you to actually start writing from the heart today. And so if you're dealing with writer's block, stay for today's episode. We're going to be talking about digging into childhood memories and songwriting and unleashing emotions and creating connections with your audience. And so if you don't have any tea yet, pause the video, go make some tea, come back, I'll be waiting for you.
Can I have some more tea?
Memories. They're wonderful things. Well, sometimes. I remember when I was a teenager, I had a hard time sleeping at night, and sometimes I would lay down on my bed. I'd turn on the rock station here in the city I live in, and they'd be playing Pink Floyd after midnight. And I would just sit there laying on my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soundscape of The Wall, which, by the way, the whole album kind of went over my head, but I just remember sitting there being amazed by this sound. It was like new territory that I've never been to before, totally new sonic things that I've never heard before. And it just blew my mind that there was music like this. And so I cherish those memories. Obviously, The Wall's a little bit of a dark album, and so now when I listen to it, it's a little depressing. But man, I just remember sitting there staring at my ceiling, laying on my bed, just feeling like I was floating in space. Childhood memories are amazing because it's like our emotions are like turned up to 10. And not only that, but when you're a kid, your imagination is so much more vivid than it is when you get older for some reason. And that's not maybe everybody, but once we get into older life and we have to focus on working and doing all kinds of other stuff, sometimes we kind of close out our imagination. And so when we pull back into childhood memories, we can open up things that we felt and things that we imagined when we were kids, which is an amazing source of inspiration. The first thing that we're going to be talking about is evoking nostalgia and emotion through songwriting. I know. Nostalgia is kind of all the rage, and everybody's doing that just to kind of, pull in some extra dollars. Disney, I'm looking at you. Oh, can I say the D word? I'm not sure. Anyways, all nostalgia is keying into subtle things that kind of make people remember about a time when they were kids. When we're kids, we have a tendency to paint the world with a golden glow, and our memories reflect that. At least that goes for a number of us. Now, I understand some of us have not had good childhoods. Childhood could be a really big source of pain for you, but that doesn't mean you can't use it to write either. But anyways, nostalgia can be all sorts of things. It can be using sounds that were used during that time. It can be using chords and chordal progressions that were used a lot during that time period. The key here is you don't want to push all the way into just making a song from that time period. It's to add in little elements that truly kind of bring back that nostalgic feel without it feeling like it's dated, right? And it's even more than that. When we start to write songs that tap into nostalgia, it's about people reliving memories. It's kind of like when you watch Goonies, and even though it's a definite exaggeration, you see the group of friends and how they relate to each other, and it kind of makes you remember what it was like to be a kid with your friends, at least for some people. And our songs should do the same thing, right? They should speak to a moment in time that's relatable to others. And so this is speaking to themes and ideas that are universal, at least to some degree, but you don't want it to be generic, right? You want it to feel specific to you, but you also want other people to be able to put themselves in your shoes. And this can really create a profound connection between you and the people listening to your music. Because once your audience identifies with your song, once they connect into your music and into you, it's not that hard for them to then become a diehard fan. And man, how awesome is it to be able to speak to people like that on a deep level where they have emotional memories the same way that you do. And so writing music this way is very honest and very real, which is why this is such a powerful tool for overcoming writer's block. Now, I already kind of talked about this a little bit, but I want you to also imagine your target audience. Now, maybe you've never heard that word before if you're not into marketing and stuff like that, but your target audience is who you want to write the song for. I know that it's easy to just say, well, I want everybody to listen to my song, but it is so much better when you can write to a specific group of people. Not that that means that you're discriminating and saying other people can't listen to your music, but this is the one audience that you're really keying in on. It's like with my music. I try to use sounds sometimes that I remember from my childhood. Like I have one song that I've written that I haven't released yet, and it uses musical elements that remind me of a video game I used to play when I was a kid. And listen, if it makes you nostalgic, there's a good chance that there are other people out there that are going to feel the same way. And so sometimes your target audience looks a lot like you. Often that's the case. And so be honest with yourself and write music that is authentic to you, and just realize that your target audience is also going to be kind of keying in on that as well. Okay, and so I want to give you guys an example. This is a song that I wrote. I haven't actually released this one yet, but it's a song called Broken Dreams. And this song is about the innocence of childhood and how we start out and things are good, but then life happened and things get broken and ideas about the world get broken. But then when we get to the chorus, it's a song about not giving up hope. Even when things are broken and things seem difficult and hard, the message is to not give up hope. And I wrote this song in a very nostalgic way. When I listen to the melody, it makes me feel nostalgic. When I listen to the way I wrote the instrumentation, it makes me feel nostalgic. And it may not make everybody feel nostalgic, but that's okay. And this song is a little more abstract. It's not like I'm pulling in a specific memory. I've kind of pulled a few in there, but I've allowed those to kind of inform and inspire the song that I'm writing. And songs like this are important because there's a lot of us that started out very innocent, had crap happen to us, and it made the world seem like a bad place, and we got into all sorts of issues and problems and brokenness. And I want to be able to help people step over that and remind them to not give up hope, because that's something that I've been able to do in my life. And some of the things that I tried to do lyrically to kind of help people tie into this nostalgia is like the first words of the song are, "Do you remember when we were just kids?" And all of a sudden, people are immediately starting to think about when they were a kid. And then I kind of talk about when we thought the world was so big and open to us and that nothing could stop us. And then moving into the chorus, it says, so much has happened since then. A lot of pain and suffering, and how easy it is to give up, but how important it is for us to hold on to hope. And then I talk about how some of that pain gets washed in an amber blur, and we remember things being more rosy than they actually were. Our songs have a lot of power to be able to speak into people's lives and help them and relate to them and connect with them, which is a big deal when you're a songwriter trying to write songs that you want other people to enjoy and love. And so this brings me to another point too. There is incredible power in storytelling through lyrics and emotions. I feel like sometimes when we go to write songs, it's easy to go into this watcher mentality where we're watching something happen. And sometimes that can be kind of cool if you do it the right way. Actually, someone who is amazing at that is Owl City. If you haven't listened to his new album, Cocoa Moon, it's awesome. And he does a really good job of doing some storytelling songs on that album. But it's really kind of a hard thing to carry out, because when we're watching from the outside, sometimes it's easy to emotionally disconnect. And so what I want to encourage you with is actually distilling your childhood memories into vivid word pictures and emotions. Now, how do you do this? I actually want you to journal. And I know that sounds really boring, especially when I say it that way, but it's not like a formal journal, okay? What I want you to do is focus on a memory. And then I want you to actually write down every word that comes into your mind connected to that memory. Don't just sit down and write a moment by moment narrative of what happened. We don't need a history lesson, But what I want you to actually do is sit there and think about the memory and write down words that come to you. And what's cool is hopefully those words are actually emotionally connected to different things for you. So we're going to actually kind of go on a scavenger hunt of your emotions. And so you could be thinking of a good memory, right? So once you have that memory locked in your brain and you're reliving it, just write down words that are connected to that. Like I'm thinking of a memory right now, and the words that I have coming off of my head are Beach Boys, wind through my hair, sunlight coming down, good vibrations, not a care in the world. Now, I know I kind of cheated there and I'm doing phrases, but that's okay. You can do that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to actually take all of these words that you've written and you're going to start to think about your song concept. Start thinking about some sounds that you want to hear inside of your song. Like, do you want to hear some guitar? Do you want to hear some ocean sounds in the background? Do you want to hear some fun, upbeat drums? Like, start kind of conceiving what you're kind of thinking about. Don't put any like hard lines on anything yet, because this is all concept, right? And the concept is what we're going to build the rest of the song from. You can start writing down more words that are kind of coming to you. And don't lock any of this in yet. We're not to the final stage of the writing, but what we're doing is we're building from that concept. And so right now I was just thinking about a good memory, but we can also tap into hard memories as well, difficult times. Like I'm thinking of another memory and I can think about words like lost, bleak, foggy, insanity, locked up. And all of a sudden we're getting a very different picture, right? And what would that sound like? I could have the sound of chains. I could have some hazy sounding pads. I could have some distant guitars that seem like they're far away and I've lost them. All of a sudden we're getting a very different picture off of a completely different memory. And so this brings me to my next big point. Listen, guys, it's really important for us to be growing and becoming healthier human beings. And I really believe that healing can come through songwriting. Am I saying that it fixes it completely? Not all the time, but it can be at the very least therapeutic. Listen, maybe you're somebody who has not shared your emotions. You've locked it down. That's kind of how I was for most of my teen years. I locked down my emotions. And now, to be completely honest, I've received a lot of healing through God and through Jesus. And you may not think that that's real and stuff, but I'm just telling you that is what I've experienced. And so I'm coming from a little bit of a different place, but songwriting has helped me to tap into my emotions and allow them to be out there for other people to enjoy, or for my songs to be able to help other people. And sometimes it's scary to be as honest as it requires to connect with your audience. But I want to encourage you to try. Try to write, even though it's scary, about things close to your heart. Start with something easier, and then you can work your way to the hard stuff too. So much happens in our childhood that affects us later on in life. Experiences that happen when we're kids grow into full-fledged trees or weeds in our lives if they're not dealt with. But there is power in revisiting the past. But as I believe, God can do some really amazing things when you open up your past to Him. And so we don't just open the past to open up our emotions and relive moments of pain, but hopefully it can be moving to someplace better with healing from that traumatic stuff. And not only that, but this is going to help your audience to relate to you as an artist. If you've been able to work through something hard in your life, how amazing is it to be able to speak about that and write a song about that will hopefully relate to somebody that's gone through something similar, and you can open a door for them to be able to walk through that they didn't even know was possible. Or if you have a good memory, all of a sudden you transport your audience back into the past and they're reliving that good moment with you as well. And when people relate to you, they feel like they're a part of your community. We already talked about this, but you can turn somebody who is like, oh yeah, I like their music, to a diehard fan if they feel connected to you. And this is where being honest and real and singing from a place that is real really matters. Because people can tell the difference between somebody that's just singing a song and somebody who has lived that song, especially if it's a good song and it's well written and well crafted. Something else I want to talk about is embracing the change. We have all these memories and it's important to tap into them, but we don't want those memories to be disconnected from where we are now. You have gone through things. And so, to be completely honest, there's no way for you to completely live in the past and write from a place in the past. But what you can do is you can tap into that past and then also bring it into now. It's kind of like going back to the music thing I was talking about earlier. We don't want to write dated songs. We want to write songs that touch on the nostalgia. And it should be the same way in our lyrics and in our writing. We don't want to live in the past, but we want to take the past and bring it into the now too. And this is really important because you want to keep growing as an artist. You want to keep growing as a person. You don't want to be stuck in the past. You don't want to be labeled as the angsty person because, let's be honest, you're not going to be the angsty person forever. Metallica. Just kidding. Kind of. It's important for us to be where we are now. And actually, Metallica is a really interesting example because their music when they were kids was way angrier than their music now. It's changed. And that's a good thing. You look at the Beatles' music. Their music started out very differently. It was much more innocent and young when they started. And when they ended, things were a lot crazier, which is kind of a reflection of where they were at. And so you have to kind of decide what that looks like. What I would say is don't put yourself in a box. It's okay to change. People like change for the most part. People want to see you grow and become a better artist, especially if they love your music. Now, there are some people that get kind of grumpy when you change things drastically, but ultimately, you have to decide whether or not you're writing music for you or if you're writing music for them. If you're writing music for you, then it's really important for you to reflect that change in your music. And I want to encourage you guys to do that. Be real, be honest with where you are, and strike that balance between pulling from memories into your songs and being where you're at. Okay, another big thing I want to talk about is collaboration. This is a big, scary word for a lot of people, and I would lie if I wasn't saying that I'm one of those people. Collaboration can be hard because, especially when you're writing about childhood memories and emotional things that you've dealt with, it can put you in a very vulnerable space. And so when you're sitting down with somebody else to try to write a song and you're being that vulnerable, it's really easy to get combative with your co-writer, especially when they're like, that was not a very good idea. A really good place to start is just with conversation, though. When you sit down and you're trying to co-write with somebody, starting with conversation and just kind of talking about things like, did you ever do this as a kid? What was your experience? And then talking about and this is what I felt and everything. All of a sudden, you can start to come up with ideas to write a song from, and they're going to be able to touch a whole nother aspect of things that you aren't going to be able to. It's really important to kind of start at this base level where you guys can relate to each other. If you want to have a good co-write with somebody, you've got to be on an equal playing field where you're relating to one another and you feel connected in that. And then the next step is to start creating melodies and lyrics. And so everybody has kind of a different style when it comes to approaching how they start their song. And so it's important just to kind of run with ideas. That's what I try to do, is run with the inspiration, run with the creativity as it's going. And so you sit down with your co-writer and they start putting out some ideas and you're like, yeah, okay, so what if we do this? And you start riffing on it, or they start riffing on it. And you're like, oh man, what about this lyric? And all of a sudden the ideas will start to roll as long as you're working together. The moment that you start butting heads and you start getting competitive and you're like, well, this is my idea and I want this, things will fall apart. And so you've got to be able to kind of lean in, and you've got to be able to kind of pull your ideas back sometimes and allow somebody else's ideas to go forward. And then other times you put an idea forward and they're going to pull back their ideas. And all of a sudden you're going to get this beautiful mesh between you and them when you're writing this song. And like I was saying earlier, it's so important to find melodies and chords and lyrics that all really kind of come out of these memories. And so you can do the same sort of talking with your co-writer, right? When you're collaborating, you can sit there and you can say, well, these are kind of some of the emotions I'm feeling when it comes to this. You can write down some words and phrases together, and you can say, well, what if we have this kind of a sound in here, or this is kind of the emotional sound I'm kind of hearing for this song. And also, I just want to say, sometimes when you sit down to co-write with somebody, you can have very different ideas of where the song should go from a foundational level. Like somebody might be like, I want this song to be really upbeat and stuff. And you might be like, oh, I was thinking more like a somber kind of like down thing. And so you have to realize as well, sometimes you have ideas for two songs. And so saying, well, I'm having this idea, but let's roll with your idea and we can save what I'm kind of thinking maybe for another song. And by preferring the other person, you're going to be laying good groundwork for your co-write. Trust me, giving goes a long way. And like I said before, writing with a co-writer when you're talking about memories and emotions can be a very vulnerable thing. And this can actually be amazing for you because sometimes we want to hide our emotions and we don't want to let anybody else in, but it's really good and healthy to let other people into our emotions. If you're an emotional stuffer, then I want to encourage you to actually step out of your comfort zone and try it. If you want to continue to grow and become a healthier person and a better artist, it takes being open and vulnerable in order to grow. And not only that, but listen, when you work with other people, you are just going to become a better artist. Half of this whole process, this whole industry, this job of songwriting and releasing music is working with people. It's about relationships. And if you can treat other people well and you can learn from other people and you can be humble and open, you are going to go farther. I guarantee it. Talent and skill is super important, but it can be learned and refined and it can grow. Being a humble and good person that works well with others is key. And so if collaborating makes you uncomfortable, I want you to try to rip off the Band-Aid and do it. Now, if you're looking for people to collaborate with, here very soon, I'm going to be opening up the Reimagine Entertainment podcast community on Facebook. It's going to be a private group where musicians, filmmakers, animators, etc. can come together in one place and we can really connect with people that we would otherwise not be able to. Listen, the reality is Hollywood and the music industry leverage the artists within their industries in order to build them up and build bigger followings for their people. They collaborate. But the thing is, most of us do not have those connections. And so how are we going to do that? Well, we've got to connect with each other. We've got to open up those connections so that we can assist and help each other raise up one another in all of our different artistries. Because guess what? Our art crosses over into different industries all the time. Musicians are needed in movies. Actors are needed by musicians. Like if you're doing music videos or you're doing anything, there are crossovers all the time. And creativity is a very broad subject. So if you need to find somebody to co-write with, keep an eye out for the Reimagine Entertainment podcast community coming out soon. It's going to be free to sign up. And my hope is that we can start to see artists joining in there and talking to each other and growing as a community that supports one another. And so listen, guys, it's really important for us to be in touch with our emotions, especially when we're creating art. When we're writing songs, digging into our childhood and the memories that we have there and the imagination that we had there can be a gold mine for us writing songs, especially when we're stuck. And this is going to engage your listeners in a totally different way. This is going to help them to connect with you as an artist. And you're going to go so much farther than you thought you could because you're tapping into something that's real and honest and relatable. Now, one last plug for you guys. If you are struggling with writer's block and you enjoyed today's episode, I want to let you know that I'm going to be doing a free webinar pretty soon, and it's going to be all about overcoming writer's block. And we're going to be talking about how to use AI as a tool to overcome writer's block. We're going to be talking about digging into our emotions even more and just some really foundational mindset things that we have to have in order so that we can overcome writer's block again and again and just punch it in the face. So if that's you and you struggle with writer's block, I need you to comment diamond down below, because we're going to be digging up them diamonds in the rough. Diamond down below, okay? And then I'm going to follow up with you guys and send you a link so that you guys can come to the free webinar that I'm going to be doing, because y'all got songs to write and I want to help you overcome your writer's block. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining me for the Reimagine Entertainment podcast today. If you enjoyed today's episode, leave a like, hit that subscribe button so that I can keep encouraging all of you artists out there to keep moving forward in your art and to help you reimagine what entertainment can look like in our world. My name's Josiah Wright, but until next time, keep creating, friends.